Ayo Sri Vrindavan, Sri Vrindavan, Sri Vrindavan, Jai Sri Vrindavan.
Srila Prabhupada quotes Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the previous acharyas that what a Vaishnav means is that our happiness is to see others' happiness and our distress is to see others' distress. Para dukkha dukhi. If we're actually developing the real qualities of a devotee, a Vaishnav, then our greatest joy will be to see someone else making spiritual progress. To see someone else receiving the mercy of the Lord. To see someone else being empowered by the Lord. When Lord Chaitanya was glorifying Haridas Thakur as if he had 1,000 mouths, all the devotees were in ecstasy. No one was thinking, why is he not saying something about me? No. When the devotees saw Lord Chaitanya gave supreme mercy to King Prataparudra, they were rejoicing. They were happier than happy could be because they were seeing someone else getting special mercy. But in the Mahaprakash Leela at Srivasangam, every single devotee was getting all his desires fulfilled. Every single devotee Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was giving such mercy to. He was showing them the form that they worshipped. He showed Kolavecha Shrida, Krishna Balaram. He showed Murari Gupta, Ramchandra with Sita Lakshman and Hanuman. Every desire every devotee had for spiritual perfection, he was profusely showering upon them. But he would not call Mukunda Dat. And this was the end of Mahaprakash Leela. And every single devotee was practically dying with their hearts in pain because Mukunda Dat was suffering. They didn't care anything for all the benedictions and all the perfections they achieved. But everyone was crying because Mukunda Dat was not getting mercy. That is Vaishnava. Vaishnava means without false ego. Vaishnava means to find happiness in others' happiness. To find the greatest bliss in seeing others making spiritual progress, getting empowered and becoming objects of the Lord's mercy. Not, why not me? That is mentality. So the Agasura mentality is to cause trouble to others and make them suffer due to envy in our heart. And also Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains the Agasura mentality is also the unwillingness to help others by giving them Krishna consciousness. Because if we have a chance to give someone Krishna consciousness but we do not, that's violence. That's a type of cruelty. So being instruments of compassion and cleaning our hearts and helping others to do the same, that is the true path of perfection. Now how to overcome this Agasura tendency within our hearts? By really praying and striving to be instruments of compassion of Guru and the Vaishnavas and the Acharyas. And try to access mercy that we can share with others through our own spiritual disciplines. Hearing the glories of the Lord, worshipping the deity, serving the Vaishnavas, and especially in a humble state of mind, like a blade of grass, tolerant like a tree, eager to offer all respects for others without expecting any in return. In that state of mind, we can access the mercy of the Lord when we chant the holy name. Parikshit Maharaj was very curious. How is this possible? A year goes by, and they're telling the story about Aghasura as if it happened the same day. Can you explain this to me? And Shukadeva Goswami was so very happy that your eagerness to hear, you're so attached to hearing the descriptions of Krishna's pastimes. And every time you hear, the taste is getting newer and newer and newer. This is the quality of a Paramhamsa. A Paramhamsa is attached to the essence of life, which is to always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. And as we make spiritual advancement, the more we hear about Krishna, the sweeter it becomes. Now I know many of you have heard this story many times before, and some of you are spacing out, thinking, I know the story. I already know what's going to happen next. I want to hear something new. But actually, Krishna's pastimes, Krishna's names are ever new. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught us in the role of a devotee. When he was at Tota Gopinath temple in Puri, he would go to hear Gadadhar Pandit speak Srimad Bhagavatam. And when he would hear the story of Dhruva Maharaj, now this is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's come with the bhava of Srimati Radharani. When he would hear the story of Dhruva Maharaj, and he would hear the story of Prahlad Maharaj, he would have Gadadhar Pandit recite it 100 times, again and again and again and again, and taste newer and newer and more ecstatic feelings each time. Before he would go on to the next story, he would hear Dhruva's story 100 times. Before going on to the next story, he would hear the entire Prahlad Leela 100 times. Immersed in the taste, tears pouring from his eyes. That's the sign that we're actually making spiritual advancement. If we take Krishna's pastimes or Krishna's teachings to be something material, then we hear it a few times and it doesn't interest us anymore. But if we're actually experiencing Krishna every time we hear the same narration, we're tasting more and more bliss. We're getting more realizations. Krishna reveals himself. Srila Prabhupada, he would quote this verse that yesterday Dinabandhu Prabhu quoted. Dehino smin yatha dehe komaram yavanam chara dhiras tatra namuyate. Yes. But Prabhupada, how many times did he quote that sloka? But every time he did it with such enthusiasm. Now recently one devotee was saying, I can't preach like that. It just doesn't interest me. But Prabhupada, who's an eternal resident of Vrindavan, who has descended from Goloka Vrindavan to preach in this world, when he chants Dehino Smin Yatha Dehe, his love for Krishna is pouring out. Because it's Krishna's words. It's Krishna's love, it's Krishna's compassion upon the living entities that he speaks this. How could we ever say this sloka enough? Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita out of his compassion and love for all living beings. These are his words, and his words are non-different than him. So every time Prabhupada would chant this most fundamental sloka of Bhagavad Gita, he did it with so much love and compassion and enthusiasm And the rest of us, I know that sloka. But if we have a taste for Krishna, we have a taste for Krishna. It's not that we always need something new, something else, something more mystical. That is a material conception. If we're actually taking shelter, if we're actually experiencing Krishna, we will be in bliss. It's newer and newer and newer. So Shukadev Goswami was praising Maharaj Pariksha because you are so enthusiastic to hear. I am becoming energized by you and more enthusiastic to speak. And Shukadev Goswami explains when there's Hari Katha, three people get benefited. The speaker, the one who's inquiring, and everyone that's listening. Your questions are glorious, Parikshit Maharaj, because they pertain to the subject matter of Krishna. Therefore, they are for the ultimate benefit for all living beings. Then Sukadev Goswami answered Maharaj Parikshit's question. After Krishna killed Aghasura, he and his friends were quite hungry because, being in serpents' mouths and quite exciting, and it's also very late for lunch. So Krishna said, let us go to the bank of Yamuna to take our lunch today. And Krishna took them to a very, very beautiful scenic spot. And he said to the Gopas, just see these soft, beautiful, fine sands that we can sit on very comfortably. And there are so many beautiful trees of all descriptions with fragrant flowers, and the breeze of these flowers is very intoxicating. And the cuckoos are singing, and the birds are making beautiful songs as well. Let us sit in this very scenic spot and take our lunch today on the bank of Yamuna. So they all sat down. Krishna was in the center, and all the gopas were like petals of a lotus with Krishna as the whirl. There were first 8 gopas around Krishna, and then there were 16, and then there were 32, and more and more and more and more. It was a beautiful sight. And everyone was so happy. Then Krishna, by his Sarva Sankalpata Shakti, performed an incredible deed. Every single gopa, and there were hundreds and thousands of them who were sitting in circles around Krishna, every single gopa had his eyes gazing upon the beautiful form of Gopal. And each one of them was thinking that Krishna's only looking at me. And he didn't expand himself in any way. He just sat as one little Krishna, 5 years old, on a lotus flower. Appeared that way on the bank of Yamuna, actually. And each gopa, in all the directions around, was thinking, all of Krishna's limbs are faced only toward me, and his eyes are gazing so lovingly upon me. Therefore, he energized all his friends with so much happiness. Srila Prabhupada in this regard explains, this is what Krishna conscious society means, that we keep Krishna's pleasure in the center. When we all are working together for Krishna's pleasure, then there can be deep, loving friendships amongst all of us forever. In the material world, as soon as any other principle becomes the center of our ambition, then potentially friends can be enemies. love can turn into hate. But if we follow in the footsteps of the Gopas of Vrindavan and always keep Krishna in the center of all our interrelationships, then our friendship in love will eternally grow deeper and sweeter. So, the Gopas, they all took out their lunch bags. And they had so much fun. They wanted to enjoy prasad in very special ways. They weren't concerned with whatever utensils their parents gave them. So they made so many other types of plates. Some were eating prasad by making their own laps their plates. Some were making plates out of leaves, and some were making plates out of flowers. Some were making their plates and putting their prasad on fruits. Some were making their plates out of the bark of trees, and some were putting all their prasad on rocks. And in this way they were very much playful and very much enjoying, and they were taking each preparation out and showing it to each other. Like, look, I have laddu, and everyone, oh, I have samosa, oh, I have gulab jamun, I have this nice sabji. And they were showing each other, and they tasted, and when they liked what they had, oh, this tastes so good. Hey, Saka, hey, Krishna, Subal, Sridhama, Stoka Krishna, taste this. And he'd take it out of his mouth and give it to Krishna. And Krishna would take it and eat it. Oh, very nice, very nice. And they were all sharing from each other's mouths. Now, according to the rules and regulations, if you want to offer something to Krishna, mantra, tantra, yantra, puja, mudra, all these things. But the Gopas did not do any of that. They were taking the food right out of their mouths. Hey, Saka, Krishna, eat this. It's very good, very good. And Krishna, oh, very good, very good. And they were sharing prasad. And they were laughing and playing so many games with each other. One Gopa opened up a samosa, emptied out the filling, and put jasmine flowers inside, then closed it. And then pretended to eat a piece and said to one of the other Gopas, oh, Saka, you should taste this samosa, it's very, very good. And then everybody would be watching. Because only that person didn't know. And then he would bite into the samosa, make a very, very difficult face after eating something very bitter, and then all the hundreds and thousands of Gopas would laugh. And then the boy who ate the jasmine flowers would run after the boy who gave it to him, and he'd start playfully beating him, and the other boy would run away, and then they'd all laugh very happily. Another time, a boy said, oh, I have something very sweet, very good my mother has given me. Close your eyes, open your mouth. They said this to Krishna. Yes, so Krishna closed his eyes and opened his mouth, and they put a flower in his mouth. And then Krishna made a really beautiful face of what happens when you eat a flower. And everyone was laughing. Then a bee was buzzing around Krishna's lotus-like face. And Krishna said to the bee, hey bee, why are you whirling around my face? You should go to Madhu Mangal's face. There you will actually drink nectar. So then the bee went and started whirling around Madhu Mangal's face, and Madhu, hey Saka, hey Krishna, what are you doing? Why did you send this bee to me? Do you want this bee to bite me? And then he addressed the bee. Hey bee, are you not afraid of killing a Brahmin? And all the Gopas would laugh. And another boy would see some monkeys on the sides. And he'd say, hey monkey, I see you're very, very hungry. Well, that particular cowherd boy, that particular Gopa, he has very good prasad. If you steal it, you'll be very satisfied. In this way, so many loving games like ordinary children. Krishna is Yagya Bhuk. which means ultimately all sacrifices and offerings in the Vedic rituals are offered to him. He accepts our offerings when they are done with proper mantra, tantra, yantra, puja and mudra. But here, today, the Yajna-bhuk, the supreme enjoyer of all Vedic sacrifices, is enjoying with his friends, eating the food right out of their own mouths as a spontaneous exchange of love. Why? Because the Gopas, they know no one but Krishna. And therefore Krishna knows no one but his devotees. Because the Gopas, 100% of their lives were exclusively, their minds, bodies, words, and souls were only for Krishna's happiness. Thus, Krishna accepted the offerings right out of their mouths with millions and millions and millions of times more pleasure than even when the goddesses of fortune offer bhoga to Narayan in Vaikuntha. As they were eating, Krishna told the Gopas that we should just relax and let the calves drink the water of Yamuna and eat the nice fresh grasses. The grasses were greener and very luscious, and they allured the calves to go farther and farther and farther away. Suddenly, in the middle of this supremely enjoyable lunch pastime, the Gopas realized, oh, the calves are gone. They became very much afraid. So they cried out, Krishna, Krishna. And as soon as they cried out Krishna's name, all their fear disappeared. Because they were chanting offenselessly with pure love. And Krishna responds to his devotees chanting his names. Krishna said, you all continue enjoying eating lunch prasad. I will go myself and find the calves. There's no reason for you to do anything else. You just stay here and enjoy. I will go. And Krishna, who was holding in his hand a lump of food made out of yogurt, rice, and fruit. And it was just within his very, very soft, delicate lotus-like fingers. He roamed to search for the calves. He looked in the mountains and in the caves and in the forests, but could not find them anywhere. Brahma wanted to see Krishna's powers. When Brahma saw how Krishna killed Aghasura and gave him Sarupya Mukti, he was astonished, really astonished. And then after seeing him perform such an immense deed, when he saw him sitting with the cowherd boys joking and laughing and eating food right from his friends' mouths, that really bewildered Brahma. Because Brahma Loka, they don't do things like that. You know, the worship of the Lord has to be done very, very punctually and very efficiently. So who is this Krishna? He was bewildered, astonished. So he decided that he wanted to see Krishna do something very wonderful. And he also wanted to test him. So Brahma displayed his mystical potencies. And he thought that he stole all the calves. And Krishna knew this. Krishna knows everything. But he was pretending not to know it. He was searching and looking and calling for his calves, and he couldn't find them anywhere. And then he returned to the bank of the Yamuna, and all the cowherd boys were gone. Brahma thought that he took them also. And Krishna just pretended to be like a distressed actor, just to further bewilder Lord Brahma. But our acharyas explain, Lord Brahma has no power to influence the Leela of the Lord. He has no power to do anything to Krishna's eternal associates. Therefore, what happened is Krishna had Yogamaya put all the original cowherd boys and calves to sleep. And then keeping them in the same place they were, she hid them so no one could see them. They were sleeping and hidden. And instantly, at that same moment, Mahamaya created identical cowherd boys and calves. And those are the ones Brahma stole. And he put them in a cave by his mystic power in sleep. So evening was coming. And Krishna did not want to cause disturbance to the mothers of all the calves and gopas. And also he knew the hearts of all of them. Every cow in Vrindavan and every elderly gopi in Vrindavan, they loved, honored, and served Yashoda Mai because she had the supreme fortune of being the mother of Krishna. All the cows and all the older gopis, they all had motherly affection for Krishna. In fact, every gopi and every cow loved Krishna more than they loved their own children. Now, Parikshit Maharaj, when he heard this was unbelievable to him. It's impossible. It's completely against the laws of human nature. If you have a child, your mothers, if you have a child, and not very well behaved, not getting very good grades in school, and your neighbor's child, very good grades in school, very well behaved, much better looking, do you love your neighbor's child more than your own? It's impossible. Impossible. So Parikshit Maharaj was asking Sukadeva Goswami, how is it possible that the gopis could love somebody else's child more than their own? And Sukadeva Goswami explained, because Krishna is the life of all lives. He is every living entity is part and parcel of him. He is the supreme source of all love. He is the supreme object of all love. And we can only love someone else because they are part and parcel of Krishna. He is the life within everyone's heart. So Krishna understood the desire. Each cow and each gopi was thinking in the core of their hearts, how fortunate is Yashoda Mai. Oh, how we wish we could also serve Krishna and please Krishna like Mother Yashoda as mother. They were not envious. They simply had that love. And Krishna wanted to fulfill those devotees' desires. Thus, by his Vasudeva expansion, he expanded himself to be identical to every one of that asankhya of calves. That means he expanded himself as one followed by 17 zero calves and hundreds and thousands of cowherd boys. Harivo. And each expansion, which was Krishna himself, had exact bodily features, exact voice, exact mannerisms, behavior, exact same relationships with everyone else, and was wearing the same ornaments, the same clothes, and had the same flute and the same stick. Krishna expanded himself in all those ways. As their sticks and their flutes and their ornaments and their clothes, everything. And then Krishna, in the form of all the calves and the gopas, entered into the village of Braj. And they all played their flutes. And when they played their flutes, now everyone's flute was as sweet as Krishna's flute. And the mothers would hear their children's flutes. They were overwhelmed. Their hearts were just overflooding with parental affection for their children. Their children came into the house and they just embraced them and put them on their laps and started feeding their children their milk. And like never before, just milk that was like nectar was flowing from their breasts. And Krishna, in the form of each gopa, was just drinking and drinking and drinking. And the mothers were feeling more and more ecstasy than they ever felt before. Now you may ask the question, if Krishna was exactly identical to each cowherd boy, then why did they feel more ecstasy than their own cowherd boys? Because Krishna was reciprocating with their love. Because their love was so intense for Krishna. Although Krishna is the controller of all controllers, he is controlling from Brahma down to the insignificant blade of grass. But Krishna has one supreme quality. He is subordinate to and under the control of the prem of those who love him with spontaneous devotion. Therefore, as the gopis were feeding their milk to Krishna, their love conquered him, and he actually forgot his opulences and became completely dependent upon them as their own child. Krishna, not just as an act, but for real, Krishna was subordinate, dependent on each mother as their own children, because he was conquered by their love. And every day, the gopis' love for Krishna was increasing and increasing and increasing. And even they were wondering that we always loved Krishna more than our own children. But now we love our children as much as we love Krishna. And not only that, we love Krishna and our children more than we ever did before. Because Krishna was reciprocating. The gopis, each night when their little boys would come home with ecstatic parental affection, they would bathe them, and then they would massage their bodies with fragrant oils. Then they would anoint their bodies with sandalwood paste. Then they would they would dress them with their own hands, and they would put ornaments, and then they would cook for them and feed them, put them to rest. Krishna fulfilled the innermost ambition of his devotees. And when the calves would come before their mothers, the mothers would be in ecstasy. When the mothers saw their little calves that were none different, that were actually Krishna, tears would flow from their eyes. Just seeing their calves, milk would just pour out of parental love. Please understand, this is not just a biological thing, milking coming out of the gopis and cows' udders. This is their love. This is their pure ecstatic prem being offered to the Lord in the form of ambrosial milk. And Krishna tasted the milk of those cows and tasted the milk of those gopis as pure nectar. He couldn't stop drinking it and they couldn't stop giving it. The cows would see their calves and start to cry. And the calves, Krishna would be so hungry for their milk in the form of the calves, he would just very enthusiastically drink it. And meanwhile, the cows, just overwhelmed with motherly affection, would just lick the bodies of their little calves and lick them and lick them and lick them. They couldn't stop licking their calves. It seemed like they were swallowing them out of their intense love. And the cows in ecstasy as their little calves were drinking their milk, they were loudly mooing. Yes, the gopis' praying made Krishna forget all of his powers. He became completely dependent upon them as their children. And this is not a fault. This is a supreme ornament of Krishna's characteristics. When a living being becomes dependent on Maya, it brings sorrow. But when Krishna depends on the love of his devotee, it brings ever-increasing bliss. Thus the love increased every day for 1 full year. About 5 or 6 days before the end of the year, Krishna and Balaram were herding the calves with the gopas. And the calf... This cow is very eager for this story. Sometimes when we're speaking, Dinabandhu Prabhu makes sounds like that when he hears something nice. He goes, Now, the elder cowherd men were on the top of the Govardhan hill, herding cows. And Krishna was with the calves and Balaram at the bottom of the hill. When the mother cows saw their calves, they became so overwhelmed with motherly love, it became uncontrollable. They just started running down the hill. Not like cows usually, but their legs, 2 in the front and 2 in the back. Dinabandhu Prabhu will show. Like this. And their udders were so big and so full, there was literally profuse milk just pouring out of their udders, as their udders were just going back and forth, and they were leaping and running and literally galloping down Govardhan Hill, and there's so many rocks and stones and everything, and the cowherd men were trying to stop them, but they couldn't. They felt very angry and ashamed that they were not able to control the cows. So they went chasing after them. With great effort, they got to the bottom of Govardhan Hill. Meanwhile, the cows started just licking their calves, and the calves started drinking the nectar of the love of their milk. And this was strange, because the young calves were kept back in the Goshala. These were not their newborn calves. These were the calves that they gave birth to the time before. And generally a mother never gives milk to the older calf. She gives milk to the one that's newborn. But these cows had no concern with the newborn calves. They wanted to give all their milk to the old calves. Because it was Krishna. And the cowherd men couldn't understand, why are they giving all their milk to these calves? And they were so disturbed. They came down the hill, and meanwhile the cows were just mooing and licking and just pouring their milk in these calves' mouths, and Krishna was drinking, and each calf. And the cowherd boys were the cowherd men were very despondent until they saw their children, who were all Krishna. As soon as they saw their children, tears started pouring from their eyes, and parental affection just erupted like a volcano in their heart. They just picked up their children, embraced them, smelled their heads, and wept, and forgot all about all difficulties. And after some time of just showering their love upon their children, intoxicated, they called the cows back, and they went back into the forest. But as they thought of their children, they incessantly wept tears of affection. Now when Balaram saw this, he was really astonished. Because as you know, it was his birthday when Krishna performed this Leela of becoming all the calves and the gopas. He wasn't there. So how is it possible that Balaramji, who was omniscient and all-powerful, did not know? Would you like to know the answer? Because Krishna covered Balaram. And everyone in Vrindavan over by Yoga Maya, so nobody knew that he actually manifested as every calf and cowherd boy. The reason he covered Balaram over is because he knew if Balaram understood that his friends like Sridama and Subal and Arjuna and Ujjvala, if he knew that he would be separated from them for a full year, he would have suffered terribly. So Krishna did not want Balaram to suffer at all. Therefore, he covered Balaram by Yoga Maya, so he thought that all of his cowherd boyfriends were he was playing with every day. But when Balaram saw this, he started to contemplate, how is this possible? These cows have been feeding their older calves for a whole year, and I've been seeing it, but I never even recognized it. And not only that, but for the whole year I've been seeing that the gopis and the elder gopas, they're loving their children the same way they love Krishna. They used to love Krishna more than any of their children. Now they love their children just like they love Krishna. In fact, even me, I love every calf and I love every cowherd boy just like I love Krishna for a whole year. But why didn't I think about why? It must be Yoga Maya. Krishna has covered me with Yoga Maya. But now I understand for sure that every calf and every gopa is an expansion of Govinda. Otherwise, this cannot be possible. Then Balaramji asked Krishna, please tell me, what is this phenomenon? And Krishna explained everything. How on your birthday, just to give pleasure to the gopas, to the gopis, to the cows, and even to Lord Brahma, I have done like this. So in this way, a full year passed. But for Brahma, one day is a whole yuga cycle. 1,000 whole yuga cycles, which is 4,320,000,000 years, is a day of Brahma. So a moment for Brahma is a year by our calculation. So Brahma understood he was playing with Krishna, so he didn't want to stay away too long. He came back in a moment, but knowing that it was a year by our calculations. So Brahma returns. And it happened to be Balaram's birthday when he returned. Exactly a year. And he saw there were all the gopas and there's all the calves playing, eating, enjoying, just like any day. What is this? And he looked in his cave and he saw that all the calves and gopas were in mystic slumber. And then he looked back and he saw identical. They were playing with Krishna. And he went back and forth. What is happening? What is happening? He was thinking, are these the real ones and these are illusory ones? Or maybe these are the real ones and these are the illusory ones? Is Krishna such a mystic that every time I go to the cave he puts them there and every time I come back he puts them here? Brahma was trying to figure out how could they be here and there at the same time, simultaneously. Brahma tried to mystify Krishna, and therefore Krishna mystified Brahma. He became completely disoriented and bewildered. He couldn't figure out what was happening. And then one of the cowherd boys just looked at Brahma and said to him, "Oh, Aja." Ajam has two meanings. It means the unborn one, and it means a goat. Now Brahma was right there amongst them, just looking, trying to figure it out. And the gopas and the calves were just completely ignoring him. They cared nothing for this Brahma. Then one gopa finally looked at him and said, "Brahma, you goat. You have created the universe with your intelligence, but you cannot bewilder us. Just look and see." And at that instant, every calf and every gopa manifested a four-armed form, the color of a rain cloud, each one with kostubamani and beautiful crowns and ornaments. And each one of those forms which was manifested from each calf and cowherd boy had all living beings circled around it, worshiping it. He saw millions. There were millions of boys and calves, and each one there was a four-headed Brahma, and there was all living entities of the universe, and there was the 24 elements of material energy, and there was all the mystic cities and all the mystic opulences, everything, all worshipping. And when Brahma saw that, he was like a clay doll, absolutely stunned and motionless. He couldn't think, he couldn't move. He was just practically paralyzed in a state of total bewilderment. And he was in that condition for some time. And then, whatever ego he had of being the creator of the universe was destroyed. And then all of a sudden, everything disappeared. And then what did Brahma see? He saw Vrindavan. Previously he could not see Vrindavan. But after going through this intense exercise of purification, he lost his ego of being a creator. He became completely humbled. And in that humble state, he saw the river Yamuna as a river of liquid prema. He saw all the trees as the most opulent desire trees. He saw the dust of Braj as Chintamani, every particle more precious than all the wealth of Brahmaloka and Vaikuntha. He saw the beauty of Vrindavan. He saw that Vrindavan was a place where there was no hunger, where there was no thirst, where there was no anger, and where even living and even species of life and living beings who are naturally inimical to each other, they are lifelong friends, sharing sweet love and exchanges, because Krishna is in the center. That is Vrindavan. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was wandering through Jarikanda forest, he had the tigers chant Hare Krishna, and he had the deers chant Hare Krishna. And they were all in such ecstasy, centered around loving Krishna, that the tigers and deers, who are naturally enemies, were embracing and kissing. Did you ever see a tiger and a deer embrace and kiss? Out of love, with tears of ecstasy in their hearts. And Lord Chaitanya remembered this sloka of Lord Brahma. This this is what he saw. He saw Vrindavan revealed before his own eyes. And there, in the center of it all, was Gopal. Just as he was 1 year before, standing all alone with a lump of yogurt, fruit, and rice in his hand, looking for the calves and the gopas. Lord Brahma realized, who is this little 5-year-old boy who's herding the cows? He's the Supreme Absolute Truth, the personality of Godhead. And what mercy he has given. Lord Brahma descended on his swan carrier to this place where we are sitting today. Now, usually the demigods, out of their pride, they will never touch the surface of the earth planet. This is a rule. They'll always be a little above the earth because it's below their dignity to touch the earth. But Brahma was in such a humble position, he just cast away all these rules and etiquette and fell flat like a rod on the earth of Sri Braj Bhumi in the very dust that we are sitting today. Again and again and again and again and again, Lord Brahma fell to the ground in ecstasy. Lord Brahma considered himself completely insignificant. He considered his existence to be like snow at night. Huh? Now, I don't know how much of you know about snow. But snow is very bright in the day, but at night you can't even see it. And at night, a glowworm, a firefly, thinks he's illuminating all directions. But in the presence of the sun, the glowworm or firefly realizes, I am utterly insignificant. Lord Brahma realized that no one can understand Krishna. No one can estimate the power and the supreme opulences, or in Vrindavan, the supreme unexcelled sweetness of Krishna. All we can do is surrender. No one's intelligence can fathom the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is only through surrender that Krishna reveals himself as he is. Brahma, who the 4 Vedas emanate from his mouth, realized that he didn't know anything. And he fell on the ground in total submission and surrendered to Krishna. Again and again and again. It was very difficult for him to see Krishna because there were so many torrents of tears falling from his eyes, tears of love. It is described that he has 8 eyes, but he could only see Krishna with 2, because he had 2 hands to wipe 2 eyes, but the other eyes were too filled with tears to see anything. There's that beautiful sloka. Let those who fear material existence worship the Vedas, the Mahabharata, and other such literatures. But I will worship Nanda Maharaj, in whose courtyard the Supreme Absolute Truth is crawling like a helpless child. Lord Brahma, his voice was faltering, his limbs were trembling, and he offered beautiful prayers of surrender to Krishna. at this place. Yes, this is the place where the greatest scholar, the most powerful manager, the wealthiest, what do you call the wealthiest multi-trillionaire, the wealthiest man, the most learned man, the oldest man. He's senior in every respect. What is our position compared to Brahma? You may think I have some money, but what is your wealth compared to Brahma's in Brahmaloka? You may think you have a big family, but every living entity is the offspring of Brahma within this universe. You may think you have knowledge, but all knowledge is ultimately coming from Brahma in this universe. In every way, Lord Brahma is billions and trillions and times superior to anyone on this earth. But here, the name of this place is
Choumuha.
Choumuha, also Chomat. At this place of Choumuha, Lord Brahma, the father of all living beings, the controller of the universe, has come down to put his head at the feet of the little cowherd boy Gopal. And Lord Brahma's 8 eyes incessantly bathed Krishna's lotus feet with the tears as an offering of his love and surrender. After offering prayers, he circumambulated Krishna, who didn't even speak anything. He was just silent, just holding his yogurt and fruit and rice in his hand. And after taking Krishna's permission, he returned to his abode. Then Yogamaya uncovered the original gopas and calves, who were sitting right in the same place on the bank of the Jamuna. Sanatana Goswami describes like this. Krishna, with his little lump of food in his hand, comes back with all the calves, the original calves. And the gopas, they slept that whole year. But when they woke up, they thought that only a half of a moment passed since Krishna left them to look for the calves. Now, what is a half of a moment? So Krishna came back with the calves, and all the boys were there waiting, and they said, Krishna, Krishna, you've come back so soon. How could you possibly have come back so soon with all the calves? In your absence, we didn't even have a time to eat one morsel of food. Come, sit down and join us for lunch again. So Krishna sat in the middle of the whirl of the lotus of all the cowherd boys, and they continued laughing and joking and sharing each other's prasad in great happiness. And no one knew that a year had passed, except Sanatana Goswami explains that all the cowherd boys grew a little, but nobody could notice that. And then evening was coming, and they returned to the village of Braj, and on the way, Krishna was showing them the completely dried up form of Aghasura. He dried up for over a year, but to them it was just a few minutes ago. And all the cowherd boys were so happy to see this big dried up snake. What a beautiful playground. This is the best cave we can play in. And that became a playground in Braj. And then they all returned to the village of Braj. And they were loudly singing in beautiful poetic songs how today Krishna has killed the big, gigantic, fat snake, Agha. And all the Brijabasis, oh, today he has killed Aghasura. And they were very much thrilled to hear this story. Shukadev Goswami tells that anyone who hears this story with a sincere heart, all your spiritual desires will be fulfilled. So here at Choumuha, where the great Brahma surrenders with humility and love to Krishna and sees the sweetness of Vrindavan, we should put our head on this dust as well as Brahma did, and we should offer a prayer. Brahma, this Brahma Vimohan Lila, it describes, hearing it overcomes attachment to karma kanda and jnana kanda. Practicing spirituality for the purpose of sense gratification or liberation. Trinadapi sunichena, taror ibasihishnana, amani namana dena kirtaniya sadahari. That is what it is all about. When we were at Govardhan, we heard the story of that Leela. Indra is a great devotee of Krishna. But Krishna, who always protects his devotee, has to smash that pride within our heart. Because false pride contaminates whatever we do. Krishna is not really pleased with any service we do if there is false pride in our heart. But humility melts Krishna's heart. And Lord Brahma, such an incredible pastime that Lord Krishna performed. So many things he's done at one time. He fulfilled all the desires of the gopis and the cows by being their own child for a year. Also, Krishna enlightened Brahma by removing his false pride. This is how we come to Vrindavan. Don't think you can be a landowner in Vrindavan, or you can have a high position in Vrindavan. I want to be a GBC or a guru or a president or a director of this or a director of that, or I want to make money here, or I want to be a landlord here. This is all illusion. Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj told one Babaji who bought a little plot of land, he said, "You are in Maya. You think you can own land in Vrindavan? This is Radharani's place. She is Vrindavaneshwari. All the wealth of all the Vaikuntha planets and heavenly planets is not enough to purchase one speck of dust in Braj, because it is Chintamani Dham." Therefore we find Uddhava wants to be a blade of grass. Brahma and Shiva just want the dust of the feet of the devotees on their heads. And Lord Brahma fell hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times in full prostrations right here in this dust, in utter humility and surrender. He did not want to be. Bhakti Vinod Thakur explains in his Navadvip Dham Mahatmya that Brahma was so ashamed of what he did. He was so humbled. He actually prayed to Krishna that this birth in such a high and powerful position as Brahma is horrible. I want to take the humblest, lowest position. And he performed tapasya in Navadvip. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared to him because Brahma was worshipping him. Brahma knew that he would be coming in Kali Yuga. And Lord Chaitanya fulfilled his desire. He said, "You will fulfill your desire instead of being the topmost worship by all the demigods, you will take birth in a Mleccha and Yavana family. An outcast, an untouchable. Your name will be Haridas Thakur. And with humility like a blade of grass, with tolerance like a tree, offering all respect to other and expecting none in return, you will constantly chant my holy name. When Lord Chaitanya asked Haridas Thakur, any benediction I'll give you in the house of Srivas. Any benediction I'll give you. Lord Brahma, who learned his lesson really good here in Choumuha, what did he ask for? Haridas Thakur said that I'm afraid to ask you for this, but I will because you are forcing me to ask. There is one desire that I have in my heart, that in every birth I may take, let me receive the remnants left on the plate of your devotees. Let me get their remnants. Even if I be a dog or an insect near the house of your devotee, that will be the greatest benediction, if I could get the remnants of the food of your Vaishnavas. That is my desire. And then he became ashamed. That who am I, so fallen and insignificant, to ask for such an exalted benediction as that? That is why he is Namacharya. That is why he could chant 300,000 names every day. Trinarapi Sunichena, Taror Ivaseshnuna. Amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. Lord Brahma couldn't care less about Brahmaloka. Here he is praying to be a dog or an insect where he could get the remnants of the food of a Vaishnava. Servant of the servant of the servant. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, hearing this genuine humility, and Haridas Thakur, after saying that, he was condemning himself. He's saying, I am so sinful that I think myself so important. But I'm insignificant. Lord Chaitanya was so blissful with tears in his eyes. He said, Haridas, anyone who sees you, anyone who hears your name, anyone who remembers you, I will give them love of Krishna. You will always be in the assembly of my devotees. And wherever people follow in your footsteps, they will attain all perfections in chanting the holy name. So being members of Brahma Sampradaya, let us fall in the dust of this place with our prostrated obeisances and pray for the humility, the tolerance, and the sincerity in which we can please Krishna, actually please Krishna's heart when we chant his names. Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya eva cha patithanam pavanibhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Jai Jai Sri Radhe. Sham. And I am such a demoniac species that we were supposed to leave at 5 o'clock because we are all supposed to be at Krishna Balaram temple for Damodar Astakam. And it is now 5:11. This human time is such an obstruction. But we'd like to hear a few words from Dinabandhu Prabhu and Jagatarini Mataji, and then we'll all... I want to stay here, but it is our duty to Krishna Balaram to be there tonight. What should we do, Mataji? Huh? Go! She's kicking us out.
Just 5 minutes.
Okay, so we'll hear from these two wonderful personalities for a couple minutes, and then we'll have a 3-minute ecstatic kirtan. We'll put the energy of 10 hours in 3 minutes, and then we'll run to our buses and go right to Krishna Balaram Temple for Damodarastakam.
So all these wonderful stories about Krishna's cowherd boy pastimes were just awakened within my heart. Very wonderful story about Prabhupada that nobody knows the story. It's not in any book. It's not even. There's only 3 or 4 devotees who were present. Maharaj said, you guys always like to hear something new and you didn't today, so I'll fulfill your desire. Because my very first temple president was a devotee named Harinama, who later became, he had some carbon monoxide poisoning because the car was defective. So I don't even know if he even remembers this pastime, but he told me. He was in Santa Fe, New Mexico, which is in a funny corner of America where it's desert. And we know in desert that's where people who kill Brahmins take birth. So this is a very nasty place. But he was there. And they were always writing letters to Prabhupada, please come and visit us. They just had a little storefront like in New York. So this is old story. So finally Prabhupada came there, and Prabhupada went to Montreal, then he came to Santa Fe, then he was going on to LA. And they didn't have enough money. Govindadasi was cooking for him. They didn't have enough money that time to fly her up to Montreal and on to LA. So she just went straight line to Santa Fe. So she came there, she went to the doctors, and they said, this place is 1 mile high, 1.5 kilometers above sea level for people who have heart conditions, because Prabhupada just had that strange, whatever it was in New York, you know. He said, this is not a good place. At that time, Harinam had been bit by a particular type of spider called a black widow. It's very poisonous. And his leg was all swollen up, he was delirious, you know, and he was just feverish and everything. And Govindadasi came back and said, Harinama, all the doctors say this place is not good for people with heart conditions. We can't let Prabhupada go here. He must go straight on to LA. And somehow Harinama was completely delirious, so he listened to her. So then, there wasn't an airport in Albuquerque, in Santa Fe, it was in Albuquerque. So they had to drive in this little VW bug up to Albuquerque. And they got there, and Prabhupada came out of the plane. And this is old days, so they didn't call Prabhupada Swamiji. So Prabhupada came, and they immediately, Harinam paid his obeisances, but his, you know, like me, his leg was swollen, and he couldn't bend down right, so his leg was, and Prabhupada said, what's the matter with your leg, Harinam? He said, oh, it doesn't matter, but Swamiji, you must immediately get on the next plane and go to LA. And Prabhupada said, what is this? You boys write me so many letters, please come, now I'm here, and you told me to go away. But Swamiji, this place is not good for people with heart conditions, you know, Govindadasi blurted out. And Prabhupada said, oh, you think that I'm an old man? Now they were really flustered. First they told Prabhupada to go away, now they're telling he's old man. So then, you know, they were really, nobody knew what to do. So Prabhupada said, what do you think we should do? And Govindadasi said, I don't know, Swamiji, what do you think we should do? And Prabhupada said, I don't know, what do you think we should do? I don't know, Swamiji, what do you think we should do? Prabhupada said, I don't know, what do you think we should do? And Govindadasi blew it out, well, Swamiji, you're the pure devotee, what do you think we should do? That doesn't matter. I was so humble, that doesn't matter. What do you think we should do? So they realized it was foolish. They invited Prabhupada, now they're calling him an old man. So they brought him back to the temple. Now everybody knew that Prabhupada wasn't coming, so nobody had cleaned the temple, nobody made any special. You've heard all the stories of Prabhupada is coming. Well, that didn't happen. So they came back. Of course, it was only Tosan Krishna and Govindadasi and Harinama, and I think that's it. So anyway, they came back to the temple, maybe a couple other people, and they came back to the temple, and all of a sudden Prabhupada got out of this little Volkswagen Bug. Everybody was shocked. And Prabhupada walked in, he paid his, they had Jagannath Didis, and he went into the Brahmachari ashram. You know what Brahmachari ashrams are like if they haven't been cleaned up. And Harinam said, well, so Swamiji, we didn't know you. Prabhupada didn't even listen. He just went in, he looked in the bathroom, then he went in the kitchen, he went here, and he looked over, overlooked, he was seeing, this is his new temple in the middle, because there's East Coast and West Coast, but this was in the middle of America, well, not exactly the middle of it, wasn't on one of the coasts anyway. So this is one of Prabhupada's new temples, so he saw everything. So then he went, and he sat down in the middle of the temple room floor in a big cushion, and everybody sat around him in a big circle. So Prabhupada was just like a little cowherd boy, and all the little cowherd boy friends were sitting there with him. And he asked for some fruit, so they brought some fruit, and Prabhupada was distributing fruit to everybody. And then he pulled out his famous little white bag, and he pulled this little plastic bag, and there was something in it, but it had been round before, but it melted and become flat. Now this is an old story. Nobody knew what a besan laddu was. And these things had become flat. They weren't like laddus, they became flat. And probably Harinam thought, what is this, peanut butter or something? So then Prabhupada was just sitting there like a little coward boy passing all this out. And there was one hippie boy there, and he looked at Prabhupada and he said, Swamiji, who is Krishna? And Prabhupada just looked at him and he answered just as matter-of-factly, like, I mean, everybody in the whole universe knows, you don't know? Prabhupada said, Krishna, he's a little cowherd boy playing in the forest of Vrindavan, who's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just like that. Prabhupada, that was his answer. He's a little cowherd boy playing in the forest of Vrindavan, who's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Shri Prabhupada ki!
As Dinabandhu was beginning his story, I was just thinking of a very small incident that I had personally with Srila Prabhupada. It was in New Zealand, and Srila Prabhupada had just come there, and the devotees had newly settled into a small suburban house, and they had on the walls different pictures from the Krishna book, posters. This was in 1972. And one of the posters was of this Brahma Vimohan Leela, with Lord Brahma on the swan in the air, and the cowherd boys all sitting around taking their prasadam. And I remember that I was somehow or other in the room alone with Srila Prabhupada, and I was feeling a little bit nervous because somehow I had managed to get this opportunity, but now I really wasn't quite sure what to say or what to do in his presence. And he was looking at this picture on the wall, and then he said to me, "Would you like to go there?" And I looked at the picture also, and I said, "Yes, Prabhupada." And Prabhupada, he looked at the picture again, and he said, "These are like windows into the spiritual world," when he was talking about this picture. And I remember I looked around at the picture, and it was just as if you went to somebody's house and they had a big picture on the wall and they said, "Oh, this is my father." And it's very clear to them, it's a photograph of their father. And with the same absolute accuracy, as Dinabandhu was saying, that same simplicity, Srila Prabhupada was just asking me, "Would you like to go there?" And it was completely natural and home for him. So this is something that by his mercy just came to my memory as we're sitting here in this wonderful transcendental place. Thank you very much. Haribol.
Another precious meditation is this particular chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, Brahma Vimohan Leela, is the last work that Srila Prabhupada did in his manifest Leela. When he was laying in his quarters in Krishna Balaram Mandir, coming very, very close to the final chapter of his earthly Leela. Jayadvaita Swami and his secretaries would put the dictaphone to his mouth as he was laying. Physically, he couldn't even walk. He couldn't even sit up without help. But out of his supreme love and his immense, intimate compassion for all living beings, and his ecstatic love for Krishna, the translations and purports to this story of Brahma Vimohan Leela were whispered into that dictaphone in his last days. It was his last contribution in his literary career to the world, Brahma Vimohan Leela of Srimad Bhagavatam. So, in this place, today, let us offer from our hearts our sincerest, deepest gratitude to Srila Prabhupada. He was giving the love of Radharani and Krishna to the world to his very last breath.